Welcome to the Church Law Tax Tips from a Pro video series. Today we'll be discussing housing allowances with CPA and author Elaine Sommerville. So let's jump right in.
Let's say that there are churches that are watching right now that don't set an annual housing allowance for their ministers. Elaine, why do you think they should reconsider that practice if they're not doing so annually?
Well, I think that's a great question. And I do believe the housing allowance is still one of the greatest benefits our ministers can receive. And while we say housing allowance, we generally talk about people who are selecting their own homes, but housing allowances are always also available for ministers who live in a parsonage because they usually have some out-of-pocket expenses. One of the key issues with housing allowance is that if it is not designated in writing by the church, it literally doesn't exist. And so sometimes what can happen is that churches can get a little sloppy in designations, and then they don't designate. When it's not a part of their normal practices, they don't designate it every year. They accidentally miss a year. And so they need to learn to, let's just make sure that designation question is never brought into play. You don't want to minister halfway through the year going, you mean you forgot to designate my housing allowance? Because we can't go backwards. So housing allowance is only good from the point it's designated. So you do want to, in your normal frame of setting your calendars every year, make sure those designations are done every year. But to help with that, we do recommend that the wording in your housing allowance designations includes what we call a safety net designation. And that is the wording in that designation simply says, First Church designates $30,000 a year for Pastor Joe as their housing allowance for 2021, say, if we were in December of 2020. And that designation will stand until it is changed, even for all future years. So what happens is that if the finance committee or the personnel committee drops the ball in December of 2021 and doesn't pick up 2022's designation, that safety net designation could still be there. And I don't like people to hang their hats on it and to be the only designation. I really like it redesignated every year because the IRS will ask for that specific designation if either the church's payroll is audited or the minister is audited personally.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to visit our website every week or subscribe to our YouTube channel to access every tip in this series. We also invite you to explore Elaine's latest edition of Church Compensation for even more tips just like this.